and and for like 9 months I would go out of my way, like it was like 2 miles out of my way, just so didn't have to stop on that hill, because I could not start a clutch from a hill.
Well, the funny thing was is like, so we talked about Ford cars. So my first car we ever bought was a 1997 Ford Escort, and it was a manual. And I remember like I had some like driving around in our family's like Volvo station wagon, and that one was manual. So I kind of remember like from like a few years before, like kind of how to drive a manual. But like I literally got like the crash course. I had the basics, but like the crash course again of driving a manual, driving that car home. And I remember just being parked on a hill and being like psyching yourself. I was like, here we go. In first, foot's on the brake, and then and like you kind of almost stall it, and then you give it enough gas, and then you're off. And so it's
Well,
funny.
see,
You'll be at. I was at the gas pumps at UPS, and this guy comes up to me. He's just like, I don't know how to do this. I was like, you don't know how to do what, bud? He goes like, they just put me on a route, and I'm in this truck, and I don't know how to drive stick. I was like, you made it through the entire selection process without having to drive stick. Because normally you take all your tests in a stick. And so when you get an
wow.
automatic, it's not that big. And so he had like the 8-minute crash course on how to drive a stick in the parking lot. And then I went into the supervisors like, hey, just to let you know, you guys put Fritz on that route, and they're like, yeah. He's like, he doesn't know how to drive stick. So before he kills somebody, you guys might want to get out there and give him a crash course on how to sit there with him for a couple hours.
That's
So,
awesome.
anyways, welcome to the PARAcast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Hernandez, who forgot to do intros for Robert and Kenny. So joining me tonight, women's future boxing champion, Robert Wyatt.
USA,
Congratulations, Rob.
USA.
And current women's boxing champion, Kenny Terry.
You can't have it, Rob. You can't have
I'm gonna call Caitlyn Jenner on your ass.
Well, if
You just watch out. You'll be walking across the street or in your car, and there I'll be coming driving down the street. I'll crash into you. It'll be mine.
it's gonna get there, everybody. It's like here's how nuts the world is. So that Olympic sprinter could not participate because she smoked a little weed. And I think we've reached the part in the 21st century where we realize is like weed is not performance enhancing, and like
So yeah, wait. Weed is performance enhancing, but testosterone
for
in a woman is not.
30 years of testosterone in a woman is not, and so it's
It's
literally jumped the shark, everybody.
is it bad of me to be like, I mean, watching all of these people, I mean, to me, the Olympics is one of those things that should transcend everything else. It's about the best of your country going and compete against the best of other countries. And when you have these people that get up there and they're like, when the national anthem plays, they turn away from it or something like that, and they use this as an opportunity to protest whatever they want. Whether I don't care what I actually
No.
do not care what they're protesting now. They just use it to protest against it. I mean, from my position, I think those people should be like thrown on a bus and sent home immediately and say like, F you, you're not going to represent our country. If you're not going to at least do it with pride, then get the hell out.
No, I got a better idea. They're obviously very talented athletes. We will let a country that's at the bottom select them in a draft. So it's like baseball, right? So baseball, you have options. So when you run out of options going up to the majors to the minors, you're basically able for any team to just pull you. So it's like you run out of options, they got to send you back down to the minors. Well, you got to go back down to the minors, but every team in the majors that has like a record than you has the ability to grab them and pull them over to their team. So it's like once you like disrespect your country, I don't care what country it is. When you like disrespect China, like North Korea now gets the ability to pull you off the draft. So it's like,
But if that's the case, they have to keep you. You
yes, you
don't get to
have
go
to
back
live
home to the
there.
United States. You have to go live in North
Yeah, you
Korea.
have to live there. So it's like your country's so bad that you're able to compete at a professional like Olympic level out there, right? And some people are a little different. Like Usain Bolt trained in the UK and is like very fond of America and ran for Jamaica, but he's not standing there turning his back on the Jamaican flag. He knows like it has problems, and he needs to go somewhere that has the services to compete. But he's like very respectful of the countries that he actually trains in. But if you want to do that stuff, then we'll just let the bottom heap of the Olympics literally recruit you to their team forcefully. From that
Mm-hmm.
on, it's just like, hey, you turned your back at the American flag. Like hey, you might get Spain. Like Spain might pick you up in the option pick. Like, who knows how well it's going to work? But I think if we did that and people had at least for the next 4 years, you got to train here. It'd be a
I don't know.
world.
It just for some reason I don't know why it bothers me because I don't generally care a lot about sports.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's obviously I have enough nationalism that there's this idea that you should actually represent your country and represent your country well. And it's so bad to me to watch these people do stuff like that that I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even want to watch any of the Olympics.
Yeah.
And usually I'll tune in for a little bit of it because it's kind of a big deal. You know, it's once every
Oh,
4 years.
fun.
Yeah, you get to see sports that, let's be honest with, nobody actually gives a flying crap about watching somebody throw a hammer, except for every 4 years where you kind of dust off the memorabilia and be like, oh, hey, hammer throwing. I remember that.
Yeah.
That's your opinion, Robert. It's your-
No, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, like
Yeah.
a lot of these things. I mean, they don't. If you take the Olympics away from it, nobody cares. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not
Well,
a
and
thing.
the problem is if you took the countries competing against each other, probably there would be less people caring. With the whole identity that everyone has an ability to see themselves in the athletes of their own country, like does it, and then they have like the little biopics on people growing up and their struggles to become Olympic athletes, and you're like, hey, look at those people, like Michael Phelps has just been like just fantastic until he smoked a little weed after he was like the greatest athlete that America's after seen, and then they like cut him off from everything. And then he had like the redemption story where like he came back and he won a bunch more stuff. So everyone can see themselves in something in the Olympics, so it's kind of nice. But anyway, this is a gun show. 30 minutes into it. Anyways, if you want hot season 7 alone talk and Ford pickup trucks and shifting, head on over to Patreon, give them $1 a month, and treat yourself to that hot talk.
Shifting and trannies.
Shifting
Hello,
and
talk.
trannies.
This sounded awfully.
Trannies, which then led us into the Olympics. Amazing how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, since we last talked, this came in. So this is the Streamlight TLR7A. So this is
What's the red ring on it?
Oh, it's like just a little warning sticker that I have.
Oh, gotcha.
sat there
Oh,
and
like
peeled off.
this gets hot or something like that.
No, it's literally an off switch. So you can rotate that bezel and it'll keep it off. So for storage or whatever, and then you can rotate it back on, and so it actually won't go back on. So it memorizes the click. So if it's on, right? You take that, rotate it off, and then I haven't pressed it again, and it's going to stay off. And then when I click it again, it'll go on. So it's like, it's Streamlight's newest generation. So they have the 7s, and then they have the new 9s. The 9
Why
is
is
like
it better than
that one.
say HL1 or whatever? I mean, that's one I've always had for
So
years.
as far as
Looks a lot
output,
smaller.
yeah. So the 7A,
Yeah, it does.
the
yeah.
9's a little longer than the HL, but they're inline batteries. So the two batteries sit inline. This is one battery. It actually goes in from the bezel. So you open the bezel up, you drop it in, and then you screw it on, and then it works pretty good. But the main
Right on.
thing is the switches. So your switches actually are, let's see here if I can get it, are actually push forward switches. So your support thumb doesn't hit a rocker or anything like that. It just pushes forward, and then it lights. So momentary, hit it on, and then it
okay.
stays on. And so, but these switches are changeable so that you can drop them to have like a very low switch, or like these are the high switches. But the big benefit of the 7A is that this is on the Glock 17, it is tiny. And so it still gives you 500 lumens. Yeah.
That's the HL.
Yeah, Kenny
This
has
is the one
Kenny.
HL. That's
Yep.
a lot larger than.
Yeah.
And so the 1HL is still the best outputting light, even compared to the new TLR9. The TLR9.
Well, and I mean, from a competitive standpoint, that HL will hold 2 of those really nice tungsten batteries
Yeah.
that Kevin
This
Isaac
weighs-
makes.
This weighs more. I mean, just. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for all that 120 power factor, you need that.
You need to have that lift there. But yeah, so
Mhm.
this is on my old Gen 3, my Gen 5s at Jaegerworks, but it's
Right
a
on.
pretty nice comfort factor. But what I got the 7 for was simply so I could run it in an appendix waistband holster, and then it's not extending even farther down, that
Oh,
would
yeah.
be bugging me. And so it keeps it so you're running a gun with a light, but you don't feel like you're running a gun with a light. And so this is a T-Rex arm sidecar that I have it in, and it's a pretty nice damn little holster. But that's going to be holding my Glock 17 with my TLR 7 with my RMR cut on
Right
it
on.
when that gets done. So it's a pretty good product, and I would say if you're actually in for a light, to have a light. The Streamlight TLR 9s are pretty nice because they have those switches are way better than the switches that were before. Because the switches before, like even if it's kind of mid, when you rock down and to press the button down on the light, like your grip is shifting forward, especially for that momentary to get that down. And instead on the 7s, you can actually adjust the depth for per the gun to get the switches into farther into the trigger guard.
Yeah, the only downside is that now your thumb's jamming itself into the trigger guard.
Your thumbs well, if you
I'm
kind of
not
have it out.
I'm not saying you're gonna go
Yeah.
and like somehow grab the trigger, but
Yeah.
it does increase the potential. It's always about potential, but it does increase the potential likelihood. Whereas the rocker switch, you're just
You're
rocking it
struck it.
down.
Yeah, so when you're pushing forward with it, you do kind of feel your index finger
Yeah.
against the side of your thumb, but it's not in motion. It's like one of the things like Mass taught was like the direction of the force. So he recommended so when you had your finger on the side of the frame, you would actually curve it and have it go in, like be pressing into the detent. So that way, if it ever slipped, the inertia would be having it force would go this way, which is not a pulling action. And so instead of having it like on the frame, like over the trigger guard, where like if it fell and went in, it would have like a backwards action that could possibly set off the gun. But anyway,
Gotcha.
for an actual piece of non-gaming kit, the TLR 7A is I think probably the best concealment carry light out there. And 500 lumens is still pretty good, but obviously nowadays there's a lot of stuff that can outshine that. But
How much wider is it than the frame inside?
It's actually pretty form-fitting, so there's not much more. So here's like there's like your top view.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
So
Say
it's
the one sticks out a lot farther.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's because the batteries are
Side by
like
side.
double wide.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And so like
double wide.
the 9 gives you like a longer form factor, like the big one. The 9 gives you like a longer form factor, but it is thinner. And I think the whole point is to get them thinner because a lot of the concealed carry firearms are getting thinner. If you look at like Glock 48 and stuff like that, we're starting to get very thin guns. And Hellcats and Shield Pluses and Ruger 9 Maxes and all that jazz. So if they can be cut, I really want this thing to fit on my PX4 so compact, but it does not. So the other thing I found out today that I thought you guys would be interested, have you guys seen Beretta's new PCC?
No.
Nope.
Beretta came out with a new submachine gun. So the Beretta PMXS, and it looks pretty nice.
They came out with a PMS?
Yeah, the PMS with an X in it. So it's like
PM sex.
Yeah. Premenstrual extreme cycle. That's what the PMXS stands for. So the X.
Whoever's naming these guns clearly does not have a depraved mind.
Well, they did this with the Storm family. So most of the people understand the CX4 Storm and the PX4 Storm, but what they forget about it was the TX4 Storm shotgun and the RX4 Storm rifle. And those didn't sell well, and so basically, I think the TX4 became was renamed into the new shotgun that everyone likes. The tactical is at the 1301, and then the RX4 got shipped over to Benelli, and then it became the Benelli MR1. So, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in there, but it actually looks pretty good. It kind of looks like it runs off of Beretta APX magazines. So. Yeah, right there.
They should take a page from Ruger's playbook and give you the ability to put Glock magazines, and then people would actually use it.
Yeah, possibly. Or the CZ magazines. Because
CZs would work exceptionally well.
Have you guys seen the new Palmetto State Armory AR-15 MP5 hybrid?
No.
All right, so if you guys have an internet browser exposed, you should go over to Palmetto State Armory. They made an AR-15 9mm gun that takes CZ Scorpion mags, has an MP5 front end with a tri-lug, and a kind of slide-in, slide-out stock like an MP5, but it has an AR-15 trigger group and bolt, 9mm subgun bolt. So it's like the half-breed. So you get a bolt hold open, and you get an AR-15 trigger and safety and grip, and then you get like an CZ Scorpion magazines, and then an MP5 from the front forward. So it's a kind of interesting little design, and which is $800 or so. So that's a pretty cool little thing that they made. So what that leads me to believe is that Palmetto State likes to take these kind of intermediate steps. Like instead of building like an AK right off the bat, they'll build an AR-15 chambered in 7.62 by 39 that takes AK mags. So we're probably getting to the point where they are getting closer to actually producing their MP5 clone. But it literally,
better.
If that thing actually runs like it actually performs, that is possibly a more technologically advanced and system than an MP5. So that's pretty neat that they're doing. So
I get such a kick out of this thing that Palmetto used to be like, this garbage company, and they just, kept fixing it. Now they're putting out stuff that's like, oh, that's actually really cool.
Well, yeah, they put out stuff that's cool, like, and then like, whether or not they're quality, it's like all about their quality control at this point. So it's like if the quality control,
but they're good about fixing it.
They'll fix stuff. Yeah.
And then they solve it for the next gen going forward, and so.
Yeah.
That's always been impressive to me, if a company will kind of come back and fix it.
But they're getting to be about as innovative as SIG is, except for without the optics division as far as firearms go. Like they're not afraid to put out a new firearm every 2 years that you could go to. And it's like their Dagger 3rd generation Glock knockoff. It's like it's a pretty good little pistol. Mm-hmm. So it's like now you're thinking, it's like, should I get a Koenig or should I spend the money and buy a Dagger? It's like, well, if you buy the Dagger, you got all the Glock parts that you can drop in there and customize it in Glock magazines. So, who knows?
I don't know. I still think right now in this world, Koenig is still probably the value leader.
Yeah,
you just get so much gun for the money. It's just crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. It is for sure. All right, so Kenny's been gone for like 3 weeks. And he went up to a little place called Colorado. And so we actually have to start you guys with Kenny's trials and tribulations that basically started the week before going to the Bighorn.
It was awesome. I mean, like come Monday, I was like, all right, I haven't practiced it all this year, so we're going to do 2 a day. It's all week. Come Wednesday, I break my first gun, break 1 Infinity. All right, it's fine. I got 1 more. We'll be okay.
How did you break the first Infinity?
Good question. Don't know. Picked it up and the front sight was gone.
The front sight is overrated anyway.
So I don't know what happened. I used to have like 5 extra front sights, and I cannot find any of them. So I was like, all right, well, it won't be here in time, so for the other Infinity.
How does an Infinity hold a front sight? Is it a pin? Is it a dovetail?
It's a high knee dovetail.
And so it just decided, well...
The dovetail was there. Just the top part of the front sight was gone.
Okay, so like the actual base of the front sight was dovetailed in and was still there, and just the top of the snipe snapped off.
Yeah, and I don't know how, like, I was shooting a lot trying to get ready, so I'd shoot one gun about 200 rounds, grab the other gun. So I put this gun down, shot the other Infinity, went to grab that one, and I was making ready, and I was like, oh, this don't look right. What's... So then I shoot rest of the week, everything's going okay, I guess. And then we get to Bighorn Friday night. I'm cleaning my gun because I haven't cleaned it all week. And then I'm like, that barrel don't look right. What the hell? So I clean the barrel, look through it, and you can see a crack on the lugs.
Darn it!
I stayed up to probably like
it's good that
32. Thinking,
yeah.
What the fuck am I gonna do?
Yeah.
I mean, you shoot it right. I mean, I'm already in Colorado.
Yeah. And so could you have taken Well, one, did you bring the other Infinity with you, and could you have taken that other barrel out of the Infinity and put it in that one, or would you have to like fit it to get it into the other gun?
I had the other Infinity, so I could raw parts off it if needed, but no, the barrel would not be interchangeable. If I had tools to change front sights, I was thinking, "Oh, screw it, I'll just knock the front sight out of this one, put it in that one, go 0 in the morning." But
Yeah.
I didn't have the tools to change front sights.
Ooh. You don't. That's one thing like that's really not in the shooting bag, because you always have like the little Allen wrenches and everything that like
What are
basically.
you talking about? That's always in my shooting
The
bag.
front sight remover, the front sight drifter and punch that.
Well, it's not the front sight. That one comes out. But I mean, I take everything with me. Because, yo, this is me.
Robert brings a tool bench and everything. It slides right in the
He
hitch
did-
of his truck and the receiver.
He takes the vise, he sets it on the hotel room sink counter, and just drills it out, puts on the bolt and the nuts, locks it down there, and then he has a vise to do all his gunsmithing on. And
All I'm saying is, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me 347 times, shame on you.
Yeah. The most I've ever gotten close to losing a front sight is 2018 Utah State. I was actually shooting this handgun, and then like so there's something I always do with Glocks because it always kind of bugs me. Like every once in a while, like every couple
You drift the
stages,
sights right?
I just grab the sights and I just play with that front sight because I understand like it's held by a nut, so it's like that.
Just make sure you don't do it when you're walking out of the safe area.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll try.
that's the rear. That was the rear.
That
sight.
was the rear sight. That was the rear sight. And that wasn't even the worst part about putting that Loctite on that rear sight. The worst part is like after I got home, because the damn firing pin block is underneath the M&P's front sight. So all the red Loctite went into the firing pin block and then locked the firing pin block in place. So you would pull the trigger as hard as you can. And since the trigger bar is working against the firing pin block, you would actually pull the trigger hard enough that it was moving the slide out of battery. It just wouldn't go. So, and then you got to knock the side off to clean up that hole.
Oh
So.
man.
Yeah.
You know, I've never broke a sight at all until that one.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I've never
Wow.
broke a sight till then.
I broke 3.
I've also never broke a barrel till that week. So
That is impressive. I have never done that. I have never done that.
All right. So,
it sucked.
what was the solution?
yeah.
What was the solution, Kenny? What'd you do?
I shot the gun. So I had Tyrell. When I broke my one gun, I borrowed Tyrell Kelsey's gun.
Which used to be your gun.
It used to be my gun.
Okay.
The problem here is I didn't know if the ammo I had would make power factor in that or anything, and I just because when I got rid of that gun, the infinities were faster. So I
Yeah.
thought, oh hell, I don't think I'll make power factor in that gun.
Yeah. Well, that's
So I thought about it all night, and I figured, you know what? I'm here to win. So I'm either gonna blow my hand up, or we're gonna give her a go.
yeah. And you came.
That-
You did well.
Yeah, it was worrying. I cleaned my gun Saturday night also, and instead of just being the lugs cracked, like half the barrel was cracked Saturday night. I was like, 6 more stages. Hold together, 6 more stages.
Well, it's good that you're only shooting, the high pressure 40 caliber cartridge constantly on a cracked barrel. That I wouldn't even look at it. That's the deal, because I was just like, no, I don't want to. It's like I don't want to know how close it's like being a bomb tech. You just like you put the tape over the display counting down in the movie. You're just like, I don't even want to know how close we are, baby. Let's just do what we need to do.
Well, so Saturday morning, I was squatted with Mark Walkie, and I asked him, because he shot 2011s way more than I was like, Mark, have you seen these? He's like, yeah, a couple times. I was like, how long will they last? He's like, I don't know, 100 rounds maybe. And I was like, nice. That's comforting. That's comforting.
Oh, that's funny.
It's like you're playing with your hands, but you're also playing with the rest of the gun. It's just like, if that thing finally just lets loose, like you're probably going to blow the frame up or definitely destroy the slide or something.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness it held together. I mean, the gun's okay. It needs a barrel in it.
Yeah.
So do you have a new one on order?
No, not yet. I've been lazy about it. I need to get one on order. I'll order a
Ah.
Schumann and put it in it. Just that's what was in it before. It was Schumann.
You know, you should just take your Beretta and just shoot production the rest of the year. I mean, go up to Area 1.
So yeah, it's between production or CO right now.
Yeah. Do you think that broken? So which did you took second, right, at Bighorn?
Yeah, yeah,
So
By
you
like,
took second with a broken gun.
yeah.
I'm
Hey,
gonna pretty much
although
give you the win because it was a broken gun.
I gotta say 1 and 2 were both infinities.
yep. How do
One was broken, one wasn't. But
did you notice that the gun was doing weird things? Like, did it feel weird or did it like group weird? Like, if you put it on a vice, do you think you would? Do you think you were shooting 7-inch groups with the thing?
no, because there was like some 30-yard mini poppers, and I still went clean on them. So I think it was shooting acceptable groups. It did chrono a little slower than I was expecting it to. So I think it was losing some pressures. I mean, you might not believe that, but yeah.
Well,
But no, I mean, the weird thing is you could smell it a lot more because where the crack was, you could actually start smelling it. I don't know how to explain it. There was a distinct smell while shooting the gun.
Right. Huh.
hopefully,
It's almost like you're getting what they call blow past or whatever.
Yeah.
That's
interesting. Interesting.
crazy.
Still,
Yeah, it was
it's not
two,
too shabby,
two,
Abby.
2 bighorns in a row, lost by 3 points. But I don't. Gianni shot well. I'll give it to Gianni because I actually had a lead going into the second day. Me and Johnny were on the same schedule. I think I had a 10-point lead on him going into the second day. He obviously did what needed to be done. I didn't, so good job for him. I mean, he deserved it.
Yeah, but you had a broken gun. I'll just say it. I'll say it.
Maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he did. I mean,
No, he's a great shooter.
Gianni's a great shooter, and he's a great shooter in his own right.
I won't blame the gun on second because it still never malfunctioned.
You know, and this is why it's like if you shot a Glock 35, you would have literally that night just woken up and just be like, drive down to some sports goods store or brought an extra barrel and just been like, yeah, $700. Let me grab that Glock 35 off you, and then just like swap the barrels off and then get going.
Yeah, but who sells a Glock 35 anymore?
Almost nobody.
Yeah.
Almost nobody. Yeah, you at least get like 10
who
different
sells
barrels.
any Glock for 700 anymore?
Yeah, just the stores that have them in there. But yeah, the chances.
I'll sell you this 7-year-old 17 for $1,000 right now. It's a killer deal.
Oh wow! Oh wow! I'll get right on that. Gee whiz. Robert, did you have anything to talk about?
I saw the Area 3 stages, and it looks like a giant carnival, which is exactly what we expected, but it's all a bunch of 32-round interestingness of it. And I'm like, there's no way in heck I am going to shoot that with a production gun. And so I'm like, I'm going to shoot carry optics. So I went out, and I know it's kind of a cop-out, but I mean, here's the way I figured it. I've been so busy at like my real world job, I haven't had time to go out and practice. I mean, Kenny kind of understands that a little bit, but
yeah.
And I was just like, I have no illusions about doing really well at this match, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna have fun. More than anything, I'm just gonna have a great time. And I'm like, and if that means I'm gonna take a dot and just hang out with my buddies who are also shooting carry optics, then so be it. And I mean, we get to shoot Sherwin's last match before he shuffles off into retirement or whatever he does, and I think it'll be fun. So, I took my shadow yesterday, and I shot the match at Slipsa, and it's really funny. You get so used to the way a Shadow 2 recoils and the weight of a Shadow 2 compared to the Shadow, that I'd sit there and I'd shoot it, and like, there's the dot. Dot is now gone. Where the hell? Oh, there's the dot again. It's just such an odd thing, and like it took me 5 stages before I was like, okay, this is how you hold the gun, lock your wrists out properly, and like, oh, there's the dot. Say the dot, and it goes fine. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
So why'd you switch from the Shadow 2?
Because that's all I got.
That's because you
right
sold
now.
off. You sold off what? Your carry optic shadows.
Yeah, I sold off the two shadows that I had, and so right now I've got a shadow that came from Papa Platt. It's a SPO1, but it was all cut and it works. It has a delta point on it. But I've got another. It's a carry optics, an optics ready Shadow 2 coming.
Well, why not shoot the rodeo?
I thought about that, but I don't have all the stuff for it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, and so I'm just like, well, I've got everything I need to shoot this, and so I'll just throw it on my Shadow 2, and I'll go have fun with that. It's funny, I actually have a lot of optic guns right now. It's just the Shadows, the CZs. I mean, I've just got everything invested and built for that, so it just makes sense just to like keep playing that game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
I think you should shoot Revolver Area 3, personally.
Yeah, if I honestly, if I had a
your hands would
if I had
fall
a-
off by the second day.
You should see some of the stages. It's like there's one stage, it's like, just all steel. It's an all steel stage, and there's another stage which is 32 pieces of paper, one shot each. Like, oh my gosh.
Every year I've shot that match, they've had an all steel stage and then one shot per all stage, and then I'm sure they have a memory stage, right?
I'm sure they do, yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the thing. They make some good memory stages, and then there'll probably be a stage that you have to run 50-ish yards.
I think
There's one stage where you're shooting around cars.
Yeah,
which-
that's
pretty fun. I mean, it's, you know what, when we heard Sherwin was gonna be his last year as area director, for us it was like, everybody always talks about Area 3 being this giant goat rodeo carnival kind of thing, and so just based on that alone, you kind of have to go experience it once in your lifetime, just to see what it was like. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, it's not really the point. You just have to go see it. And so we're just going to make that happen this year. And so be it. We did. It was fun. It'll be fun.
I think Revolver should allow red dots on them. I think that would actually be fun.
we're letting everything else in. Why not?
Why not let red dots on a revolver, a non-reciprocating dot on a revolver, like on an 8-shot 38 special? That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, because we might get 2 more people in the sport, making a whole new division.
Yeah, we should. We should get them in there. And then this shit hanging on a Dominate Defense belt. Head on over to DominateDefense.com. I'm wearing the T-shirt, my favorite T-shirt, and use promo code PARA10 to save 10% off your entire order. I have 4 of them. I love them. They're great. Check them out. Best belts out there. And I even pulled the one that's set up for all my Glock stuff, and then I almost put it on the dry fire practice. So we're gonna start doing that because I'm gonna shoot the super shoot with my second match period with a red dot. So we'll try that. My first match went well. I beat Step in my first match with the red dot, so I was happy with that.
Did Step show up?
Yes, he was there shooting his freaking limited gun with his freaking finger just going. The most distinctive thing that ever reminds me of me and Jared Stepp, because we'll shoot pretty damn close to each other if I'm in like production and he's in like carry optics. So like he'll be like 3%, like at like Barry Steel Open, he'll be like 3% better than me and whatnot. He's probably a lot better than me now because I haven't been shooting that much. But like there's this one stage that will always stand in my mind. It was that day. Is I have this carry optic Sig X carry, and it's like there's like 3 targets. It's like do 2 to the chest, 1 to the head on each target. And it's sitting there in the steel pan, and I drop pop, 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 and then head, 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 right? And then Jared realizes like, because I'm thinking like, hey, it's a 9-round course of fire. We're gonna shoot 9 rounds. We're gonna be good. Jared Steps, however, idea. He just draws up and goes. And then finishes it like a second and a half faster than me and fires like 17 rounds or 18 rounds at it. Just it just like it's like okay, well there's the difference. So
I would like to know at a regular club match how many extra rounds Jared shoots. I mean, it's got to be the 10 to 12 per stage, right?
I would imagine if it's a 32 round count, he will hit about 41. And you think for a second it was like, well, or maybe hits like 37 or 38. And you don't think that sounds like a lot, but when you actually sit there and look at how you would shoot, you would go like, oh, I had a makeup here. Like you would remember your makeups. Jared builds that in and just like, he'll just go through it. He just has no remorse about extra shots downrange. And it's a style that works to him. He's literally.
I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna set up a match one day that like every stage is Virginia count, and watch him crush his dreams.
Well, it works for him. When I watch him shoot, it reminds me of Charlie, because that's kind of Charlie's way of thinking, right? Like if he only shoots 2 at each, he's gonna win by a lot. But he shoots so aggressively that he's okay having the makeups in there.
Yeah, and it's like Jared Stepp is like one of the only people I've seen outrun a firearm. And it's just like one thing is like he can kind of outrun a firearm here and there, but what he can, the one thing is too. One time I had to watch him shoot from retention, and he literally tried to pull his machine gun Kelly trigger splits while having his arm tucked in shooting from retention. And it's just like, no, the gun will not live for that much. Like, that much firepower under that little of strength holding it. And so he, like, generally, he's like, shit, and fixes it and goes again, too. So he's just as aggressive in Call of Duty Warzone, if anyone wants to know. So that's your step. Also, GallonPulse.com, use promo code PewPro10 and get 10% off your order, your first order. And then check out, head on over to Telegram. You can join our little group there. When we ask for questions, you can give us questions. And, of course, Patreon.com, $1 a month, gives you a longer, uncensored version of the show. Robert.
From Dirk Hopkins, inquiring minds want to know, when will Miss Karen Funston conclude her investigation? This is the person who's investigating what happened with Mr. Foley. Supposedly, I actually asked somebody, and they said supposedly this week with the board of directors meeting is when they're going to be talking about it.
Nice.
And so, who knows what's going to happen to Foley? But I don't know.
You take just guesses.
If I was to guess, I still think he's out.
Tom.
Well, the problem is that when you conduct an investigation, and especially when you talk to a lot more people, things get a lot more muddy than they would appear on individuals' point of views that are posted or secondhand. So, like, you get a more generalized understanding of why people did something or didn't do something, or what was actually said and what wasn't. Like, I do that all the time as a shop steward. Is like, you'll hear something about, like, hey, this driver or this manager did something, and then when you actually sit down and talk to him for 30 or 40 minutes, it's just like, oh, okay. Like, that makes sense. And then, like, you have little things that's like, was any of this provoked? And, sometimes a lot of people on Facebook, and I'm not saying that this is the case, or when they make their public statements, is they leave out the provocations in which
What they did.
They did to provoke an incident. It's like,
Sure.
Hey, Foley, you gonna fuck up another division? What? and then Mike Foley came up and started yelling at me. Like, it's it's like, you can have a lot of stuff, and I'm not saying that happened, but it's generally when you go into it, you realize that, it was just a raccoon fight in a dumpster. So
basically, it's like your two kids arguing, and who's correct.
Yeah, well, the other part, too, is, like, normally when something's so terrible, you don't even really have a super big investigation. You just kind of have a dismissal, right? Because if you're in such a breach of contract that's so blatant, then people kind of remove you there. But if it's different, then you'll have something more of the lines of an investigation. Generally, investigations don't lead to much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kenny, what do you think?
I think he's staying in place.
You think so?
I think he's done enough stuff that has proof of what he's done that had no repercussions. Why would this?
Well, in that regard, I still look at it from the standpoint of, I mean, how many times does a man have to beat his wife before eventually he kills her? And that's kind of what he's doing here. Is he just kind of keeps beating on USPSA.
Let's leave OJ out of this. He was never convicted of that, and he's a free man. Okay, you can follow him on
free
Twitter.
Man.
You can follow.
Look, I get it. But that's kind of that's the analogy, and it's kind of a rough analogy. I get it, but at the same time, I mean, at a certain point, if the board keeps dismissing all the things that he's done, and it's been shown that he's done, then the board then becomes culpable for those actions. And if that's the case, then we start saying, okay, then we need to get rid of the board and vote in people who actually have enough spine to stop the abuses that are being taken place by the president. That would be if everything that's said that happened with the whole Trevorgate thing, if that's all true, and so grant that, say it is true, and the board then chooses to do nothing, I think that speaks very poorly of the board as a whole, and every single person on that board who voted not to do something, they should be, at their next election cycle, they should be actively ran against and voted out.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think something should be done. I'm just saying he's done dumb shit for the last 6 years and nothing's been done.
Yeah, and I think
True.
they're probably waiting on other people to vote him out. But the other part is too is you got to be really invested into USPSA to. Well, I would
Care.
say social media on USPSA for a lot of people that are especially new shooters who are just showing up to matches. I don't think it's really on the radar. So.
There's certainly a lot of truth in that. I mean, people who listen to this show and the podcast, I mean, they're arguably they are in the minority of people who actually are members of USPSA. Then you take that minority and you figure the people that are showing up to matches, like the big major matches, they are in the statistical minority of minorities of the game.
And then the people who actually vote.
And then the people who vote, they're not in that minority. There's not that many people who vote in the first place.
Yeah.
But a lot of those people, they're not on the socials. They don't see they don't see all the stuff that happens. They're just like, oh, Foley, that's the guy who gave me the carry optics and let me shoot my PCC. And that's how they look at it.
Yep.
And yeah, I could see that happening. So who knows? Who knows? From Sebastian Munoz, who has the birds chirping in the background? Also, what are the best Ruger 1022 mods?
I have the birds chirping in the background. Downstairs we have 5 parakeets and a parrotlet. They used to be right back here where all these plants are. And then I was like, well, I'll be recording upstairs, so let's have them downstairs so we can't hear them. And then we hear them all the time. Now, if they just chirped in unison, then everyone would say, who has the fire detector that needs a new battery? But they don't do that, so...
I remember that.
1022 mods, trigger, barrel, stock.
Basically everything. Throw everything away except for the receiver.
Well,
and
Ruger does make a pretty nice pre-set up
BX25, BX25, something like that. Their little trigger pack.
BX22. That's what I run in mine.
It's I heard it's actually pretty good.
2.5 pounds. It's fine. For the price, I mean, that's the thing is for the price compared to like the kit or something, it's way cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, they have their competition model.
Yeah, they make a 1022. My father bought one.
Yeah, the comp model, and then the target model, and then they have the takedown light. But like, yeah, I mean, your MSRP on a lot of these is the cheap one's $900, but it's probably going to drop down into $780 something when you get down to street price. Hopefully, so those look like they would actually do everything pretty much for you out of the box.
Yeah, so the target, my father bought the target, and the only difference between it and the regular 1022 is barrel stock trigger.
My favorite thing with the 1022 is they have the takedown model, and then Magpul came up with that stock, so that it all kind of collapses into itself. If I didn't have a 1022 already, and I have enough 22s at this point that there's no reason to buy another one, but if I didn't have one of those already, I would buy a takedown, and then I would buy that stock because I love how just perfectly compact the thing it breaks down. I just think that's just an amazingly good pairing.
You can never own enough 1022s, Robert.
Maybe. Actually, the only thing I actually really dislike about the 1022 more than is the mag release. I can get past the rotary magazine that they use, but for some reason, and it's something I'm doing. I get that. I have a really bad habit of bumping the mag release, and I've actually lost a couple of magazines. Like I'll be out somewhere and it'll bump it. I'll bump it. It'll fall out, and then I don't see it. I lose it. So that now, whenever I take out my 1022, I actually have just a little piece of tape that I just tape over the bottom so that it just can't get lost.
Which mag release are you using?
Oh, it's the stock one that came with it.
Okay.
It's kind of silly, I know, but it was just one of those little dumb things that kind of just bugged me enough that I found some tape, and that's how I keep it in.
You know what I was just funny, just looking at the Ruger's website, is they got a kick-ass product in every segment of the market, except for a full-size 9mm handgun that you could use in competition. It's like everything except for the USPSA market they have pretty well covered.
I mean, outside of Maggie Reese, does anybody actually shoot a Ruger? And let's be honest with
Well,
you,
not in
the women,
USPSA, but
the women in practical shooting, um, well, not all of them, but a big chunk of the women with jerseys,
they're there for the
they're not actually
sponsorships.
they're not actually shooting the gun that they say they're representing.
They're billboards.
Looking at you, Jesse.
They're billboards, and generally, the larger the billboard spaces on the T-shirt, if you get my drift, is the better the sponsors.
Wait, I want to
Mhm.
have something for 1022. Something I forgot. The kid makes a buffer pin for the 1022 that when you're shooting it fast makes a world of difference. It's like $5. It might be better than any of the modifications.
The kid.
It's made by Kid.
Never heard
Kid.
of it.
It's all right. So the rear pin that your bolt slams against in the 1022. So they just
Okay.
replace that with a urethane pin, and so instead of metal on metal, it's hitting plastic.
Oh,
And for
okay.
22 matches and shit, it makes a huge difference.
Interesting. Okay.
I was just sitting there looking at the revolvers, looking at the Ruger PCC. That thing's
I
solid.
love that. I love Ruger's revolvers.
The
Ruger builds great revolvers.
The Ruger Max, that little tiny 9mm, all this long-range competition rifles, they're killing it there. Their AR-15s are a pretty good quality that they're producing. Their
Actually,
falling block #1 rifles are amazing. It's just like, but you guys can't get. It's like I don't want to shoot a Ruger American or a Ruger Security whatever that you guys have at a 9mm pistol.
okay, so I'm changing the subject really quick, but I was talking to Eric yesterday, and I had this thought, and I wanted to actually talk to you about it. So what if, like in USPSA, we have classifiers all the way back to 1999, right? The 99 series classifiers. What if USPSA just came in and said, okay, every single classifier from now on is going to have a sunset, like sunset laws, right? You know, like the assault weapons ban. It only lasts 10 years. So like after 10 years, the classifier is done. It's off the books. It can no longer be shot for score. Why don't we do something like that? I think that would have the benefit of it would basically stop a lot of these old classifiers and that whole argument of this classifier's been so heavily shot out. It would force USPSA to keep coming up with new classifiers that are more respective of the game, like moving classifiers. Because if you look at all those old 99 series, all the way up until what 2014 or whatever, they're all stand and delivers. How often do we ever stand and delivers? In classifiers. It's like math teachers. Why do we learn math? So that math teachers have a job, you know? And so it's like, why don't we should sunset all of those.
You're correct, Rob. I agree with you.
You could have them sunset. The only problem is as long as the new classifiers, because you got to have at least a decent high end for everyone to see what their classification would be off of those. So you might solve like a classifier being shot out, but you would have a harder time having the opposite problem where everyone could grand bag off of the new ones, at least initially.
People are going. Here's the way I look at it, and I could be wrong on it. People are going to grand bag and sandbag and do all sorts of things as far as the classification. Here, I don't actually care anymore. There was a point when having that letter actually meant something to me, but eventually I started going to these major matches, and I'm like, oh, this is who I really am as a shooter. I'm not an M or an A or whatever. I'm actually this. This is who I am, and that's when I'm going up against the best in the country.
Yeah.
And that's more honest than some letter is. The letter is just it's a placeholder for what division that you go and you check on the practice score app when you go to the major match. So I don't actually care about that letter designation. I care about how I am in a proper match.
Yeah, I'm just saying
so
is that you don't. You can run into the problem that like IDPA did with like the 5x5, where it's like you have this gigantic influx of master class shooters, and then you have a distinction or a class that does not. Then you almost have to make like another classification, which is like above that to kind of separate those people
right.
out.
And so how you work to solve that is you are continuously adjusting the classification requirements. And USPSA got into trouble in 2017 or no, it was 2018 when they went and they made this massive change, And like, so now it's like, I'm a master under the pre-production or under the pre-2018 classification. That's what people have to say now, because under the post 2018, it's like, no, they're substantially harder, and people who classified as a GM under the pre can't even do it now. And so, but the problem was, and I think it was actually Bruce Gary who was making this comment, and he said that USPSA used to incrementally increase the classification requirements to be a GM and stuff like that, but they stopped doing it for a long period of time for some reason. I can't remember why. I think it had to do something with the politics of the board and the presidency more than anything, but they stopped doing it so that everybody went and got better, as people do, because the people who started off in 1996 when IPSC and USPSA did their thing, the people today at 2021 are better than those people in 96. I would make that argument, and I feel pretty confident saying that.
Yeah.
And so the classification scores have to adjust over time. And if we make a point of constantly updating those things in slow incremental amounts, then it tends to solve a lot of that grand bagging that you're going to see on brand new classifiers. But even then, if we're constantly dropping old classifiers off, I would say it should only be like maybe 5 years. I could go to 10, but like 5-10 years, drop the classifiers off, just keep reintroducing new ones.
I don't know. Classification system completely.
Just run the percentage by your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, just have a percentage by your name. It's, he shoots in this percentile of USPSA shooters.
Yeah, the only real advantage of the class system I could see would be that it would be for matches, like major matches, where you're trying to say, well, who is a C or a B class, and we're going to award those trophies. But Dave Blanton, he made a comment in one of his podcasts talking about nobody's a D class, really, and so why don't we just kill the D class as a thing? It's C and below is where we start.
Well, I think you could have that, but you would have some people, but if you just had the match percentage, and at least if we got rid of some of like the classifications of CB, CBA, Master, Grandmaster, you just had to run a percentage, and then we could let that percentage shift. And so, if you just had a percentage, it's just like, look, over the past year, from your renewal to now on your membership, you have shot in the classifiers you've shot 66% of what people are shooting. So at your next renewal, for your next year competition, you will be kind of sacked off in that 66% range of competition. So it's like, then you would have a classification that would float.
The hard thing about that, you know what? Every single idea that we come up with is always going to have the
Oh yeah, that's it.
You're never going to get rid of that.
There's just
trade-offs. Absolutely.
So, does IPSC run classification or anything at all?
I thought they did all based on your match performance.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they don't hand out awards for classification. That's what I was getting at.
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to ask Eatman.
I say, is this just an American thing that we have to give out more awards?
It sort of feels like it. I don't know. I mean, I've always wondered.
Awarding lower classifications is always a good thing.
I think it is.
Keeps them coming back.
But because it gives people incentive to come back and do better. I do think though, if you win your class, I mean IDPA does this basically, but if you win high B or high C or whatever, you automatically, it shouldn't even matter how many people are in that division or shot that division, you should automatically be bumped up to the next division or the next class. You should, at a major match, you just should.
Yeah.
I honestly think is like if you remove some of the actual class names from it and then just had a percentage, because there's two reasons to becoming a GM. One is like the self-satisfaction of knowing that you worked hard at something and then did it. So I understand it. And then it's lording it over other people that when they come talk to you, you can say, no, I'm a GM. And so like
I have it printed on my shirt.
You should. You shoot with a broken gun too. It's great. So I think
Kenny brings his little camp chair. He sits down. He's like, "Hey, people, you go paste. You go paste. Hey, aren't you gonna help? Hey, I'm a G."
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not gonna say who was on our squad yesterday, but yesterday at the match we had a very small squad. There was only I think there was like 6 of us, and we had somebody on our squad. And that somebody, I'm not naming names, but if I was, I would. No, 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 I'm not going to say names. But if I was, you all know exactly who I'm talking about.
Does he
Just
shoot
think.
a canic?
No, no,
Shit.
he actually helped. Um, he would be the Winter Soldier.
Anyways,
Think about that for a minute.
I got you.
I'm thinking if you literally win it from year to year, like you shot off your previous years, then there would be less of incentive of telling people exactly where you stand, and then it would be like, well, I'm trying to move up in the percentile with everyone else, and like you do it with your classifiers throughout the old classifiers. But I honestly think if we just got rid of the classifications or let the classifications change, like there'd be less bragging if you didn't live up to a grandmaster or master status and it fell off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the letter means more to people. I think here's how I look at it.
I think it means too much to people.
Well, okay, so if you think about the amount of people in USPSA who shoot matches, who shoot local matches, and then that's going to give you a percentage. But then you think about the amount of people that actually will go to an area match or a nationals match, and that is a statistically smaller, like very, very small portion of it. The people who show up at the area matches and the national matches, those are the people that I would make an argument care the least about the letter, because they're there to find out where they're actually ranking among the majority of the people. Now, you're going to have some people that will show up at sectionals and things like that, but the people who care the most about the letter, all they ever do is shoot their local matches, and that's where they live their world out.
It's something to compare themselves to. But yeah, a rehaul of some of the older classifiers would not be that bad. But we would see the end of Bang and Clang. I hope you're realizing that on the altar of your new world, Bang and Clang will have to be moved out.
I would be so happy. Jeez, I would be so happy just to see the majority of those 99. To be bluntly honest with you, I want to see all the 99 series classifiers gone, and I want to see I want to see them create classifiers that work well on an indoor range that only has like 50 feet wide by 75 feet deep. Things like that that can be shot on an indoor range. Because I mean, that was the thing that always means the 99s always stick around, is like, well, these are the only things we can do in a small bay.
Shot out even more.
Yeah, because they're just paper. I mean, yeah.
I do not want to see El Pres go away.
No, there should be grandfathered in ones that you sit there and go that are just staples that should always stay in. I don't think anything like El Pres or a Bill Drill or something like that should ever just.
I personally think Can You Count? I think that has to stay.
No, that needs to be number one
ever.
No one can count to 5.
What was the one that they did? They did at Nationals this year. Basically, it was Can You Count with movement. It was the dumbest classifier ever.
Well, anyways, we've cooked the show into 57 minutes on the regular show and an hour 22 on the extended version. So you got what you paid for.
Sorry.
Anyways, thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for subscribing. Steve Cosby's out camping, so we like to give him a day off. But thank you for doing all this and what you guys do for us. We appreciate doing it, and we're going to keep chugging along and maybe one day reach 400. So for Robert Wyatt, Kenny Terry, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and soul as we depart into the open waters of the Sea of Life on a little tugboat we like to call the PARAcast. And I got it this week, and I didn't even think about it this week, and last week I couldn't do anything with it. So there you go.
Good night, everybody.
Oh, I was about to hang up on you guys instead of pressing stop on the recorder.
Yeah, I almost did the same thing.
And then I got to press stop on the recorder on the video.